topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Camping Show. I'm C.W. Getz.
And I'm Willow Munson.
It is Wednesday, September 29th, 2021, and we have a beautiful, beautiful 84-degree sunny day here in Illinois. I'll tell you something, Willow, it was ideal. It wasn't humid. I know you don't like humid, but you couldn't ask for a better day than today. How was the weather where you were?
We finally got into fall weather, so it was mid-70s and very little humidity for Pennsylvania, so I'm happy.
You're happy with that?
Yes.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Well, tonight's episode is brought to you by Campground Views, making camping easier.
And by Rutabaga Paddle Sports, providing time on the water.
Tonight's episode is Ellen Magellan's Sea Expedition Prep with our special guest, Ellen Falterman. Willow, could you tell us a little bit about Ellen, please?
26-year-old flight instructor, traveler, and adventurer, Ellen Falterman was raised in rural East Texas. Ellen's father, who was an ex-Air Force pilot, taught her how to fly airplanes, and Ellen eventually decided to become a professional flight instructor. She's now been training people to become pilots of small aircraft since 2015. Passionate for adventure, Ellen has paddled, cycled, hitchhiked, and rode over 10,000 miles collectively, which is accumulated to a total of 18 months period of time. In 2014, Ellen went on a paddling trip in the Amazon basin with her brother Patrick, which lasted 3 months for a total distance of 400 miles. In 2016, she did a 5,000-mile tandem bike trip from England to Greece, which took 4 months to complete. In 2017, Ellen paddled a solo kayak down the Missouri River in 100 days at a distance of 2,300 miles. In 2019, Ellen began a paddling trip down the Mississippi River. The first leg of the trip began in Lake Itzaka, Minnesota, and went to the St. Louis, Missouri. The trip was 1,600 miles long and took 2.5 months to complete. In 2020, Ellen completed the entire Mississippi River, continuing from St. Louis to the Gulf of Mexico. From there, Ellen continued to row another 550 miles to visit her childhood home in Tarkington, Texas, paddling a total of 2,500 miles and taking 4.5 months to complete. Ellen's next exhibition is planned for 2022. The trip will consist of approximately 40,000 miles of rowing around the world in a rowboat designed for ocean travel, which is estimated to take approximately 7 years to complete.
You know, Willow, it's too bad she really hasn't done much with her life. I tell you what.
I know, it's so boring.
With that, welcome to the show, Ellen.
Welcome, Ellen.
Hi.
Wow.
Hey.
You know that scene in the movie The Graduate where they're like listing all his accomplishments and he just runs up to his room and hides? Like, that's kind of how I feel like right now.
Just put it all out there.
Yeah. What a lot of stuff you've done, man. That's incredible.
So, Ellen, what is the motivation behind each of the extraordinary adventures that you've done?
Well, it's sort of a 6-year story. But originally, back in my other life, I was going to be an actress. I had an agent lined up. I was going to go to Hollywood. I was going to do all that. And then my brother died suddenly, the brother that I went to the Amazon with. So I decided to paddle the Missouri River by myself because I needed some alone time. And I've just kept going ever since. That's the short version.
Yeah, right. I know there is a longer version of that. That's really been your primary motivation, has it, for a lot of things you've done?
It has. And I found when I was paddling down the Missouri River, people would obviously ask me why I'm doing it. And it forced me to talk about my brother's death, which isn't something that I would normally be talking about. And I think it's been good for me to open up about that and not just ignore it and not mention it at all. So I think really it's helped me, and it's helped kind of his memory live on, that I get asked these questions, because that's really how it all started.
Yeah. A little therapeutic, huh?
Definitely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, so let me ask you, what's been happening since, let's see here. I'm looking at my sheet because I'm cheating. November of 2020. Yeah, that's the last time you heard. What have you been doing since then? What's been up?
So last I was on the show, yeah, I'd just gotten off the river. I had put a big old bow on all my river travels by going back to my childhood home. And when I was coming down the Mississippi River, basically what happened is I was thinking about what I was going to do when I got off the rivers, because I knew that time was coming to an end. That chapter in my life was coming to a close. So I basically decided that I wanted to keep going, and I would be in the Gulf of Mexico at that point. So I decided to get a bigger boat. And so I've been planning that expedition really almost for the last 2 years, and been paying off my ocean rowboat. Is a bit of a bigger endeavor financially than what I've been doing. So I've been paying off my ocean rowboat. I just finished paying it off, which is incredibly stressful.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, got a boat baby now.
I
and
think
then
the first thing I would have done after I got off that trip that you were on, and I saw the videos, is go into the hospital for all those mosquito bites and all that kind of stuff that with your tongue. Oh my
gosh, there were so many mosquitoes last year because we had 2 hurricanes, so it was ridiculous. But when I got off the river, I mean, you always have that post-expedition depression, as people call it. I don't know if I would call it depression. It was more just like I was sort of in a daze, especially since I knew that I wasn't going on another river trip, that it would never be the same. I would never do an expedition like that again on the river in the near future. So I had a bit of a moment there. It was a pretty hard transition. And that was the 5th expedition that I've done. And you always have to transition from expedition back into society. And I swear it gets harder every time, because you get more and more comfortable out there and you want to come back less and less. So that transition was actually pretty difficult. So I comforted myself by doing a series of rowing races. I did the Texas 200, which was in the early summer. That was 200 miles along the Texas coastline. It's actually a sailing event, and I decided to row it. I was the only rower. That was a lot of fun. I did the MR 340, which is the Missouri River 340 miles from Kansas City to St. Louis. And I went to England for 5 weeks and did a bunch of ocean rowing training. And then on Friday, this coming Friday, I have my last rowing race of the season, the Tour de Teche, which is 135 miles here on the Bayou Teche, where I'm at in South Louisiana. So I just sort of planned these 4 rowing events to keep myself kind of feeling better from not being on the river anymore.
And besides the events you listed, which are all very significant, do you often participate in maybe like littler races, or how often do you participate in these kind of races?
Not too often. I spend most of my time doing independent expeditions. I did do the MR 340 before in 2018. I was sort of in between expeditions that year. So if I'm not doing something that summer, then I'll plan a race or a smaller event. But most of the time I'm doing my own thing in the summer. So this was actually one of the first summers that I've had where I didn't have any expeditions planned. So I sort of picked up these series of events to keep myself occupied.
And when you go on your expeditions, have you ever thought about just not coming back into normal society?
Absolutely. That's why I'm leaving for 7 years.
Wow.
That's true. That's a large chunk of time.
It is, but I did the math once, and if I live to be an average age of say 80 or 85, then 7 years is only like 12% of my life. So it's not my whole life. I mean, it's going to feel like my whole life when I'm out there, but it's just a chapter. And, hopefully I do things after that, and I have many more things planned. So it's just a piece of it. 7 years seems like a long time, but it's only 12%.
Well, that'll take you into your 30s.
I'll be around 34, 35 when I finish.
Yeah. That'll take the rest of your 20s away from you. But you're okay with that, though. Huh?
Away from you.
Oh yeah. Why
That's
do you
an
have to word it
awesome
like
way
that?
to awesome way to spend your 20s. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, that's true. I guess I'm thinking most 20-year-olds are in the bars partying and all that kind of going to concerts and things like that. But yeah. Well, Ellen, you were featured in Paddling Magazine this summer, issue 63, if I'm correct. How does that feel to be featured in one of the paddling community's most popular magazines? I mean, it's huge, right? Did you feel like a rock star?
Well, everything has happened really organically. I haven't reached out to anybody about publicity. So all of the magazines and radio shows and podcasts that I've been featured in is people have all reached out to me. So Paddling Magazine happened totally organically as well. And I mean, if you look at it from the outside perspective, then it looks like, wow, look at this person. She was like really a go-getter and she got her article in Paddling Magazine. That's so cool. But then me, from the inside perspective of me, it's just, it's just me. I'm just a person, just like anybody else. So it probably should have affected me more. And don't take it the wrong way. Like, I'm very honored to be in Paddling Magazine. Like, that was really cool. But it didn't feel like people would think, I guess. It was just like, oh, that's me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because that would go to a lot of people's heads.
I guess. But, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Have you had anyone reach out to you and say your story has been so inspiring, you inspired me to do X, Y, and Z adventure?
Absolutely. And that's actually one of the biggest rewards I get out of doing what I do, is the people that reach out to me and go, hey, I took my bicycle out for the first time in 3 years, or I bought a kayak today because of you, or, I went and stopped by this coffee shop that I drive by every day and never been inside because of you. So like these little things that I didn't know I would be affecting other people in positively. And that has kind of become the grander reason that I do these trips, because you can do them yourself for your own personal reasons. But if you're not affecting the world in a positive way, then have you really done anything? So that is something that I didn't plan on. That has been just amazing, that people have reached out to me and said they have no idea how much it affects me and how much it keeps me going, but it does.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, wow.
Have you ever been on trips where you're like really struggling, but you think of like the support or the people that have supported you to do such an adventure, and that has like spurred you to keep going?
Well, so far everything that I've done has been financed by myself. I haven't.
Okay.
But this next expedition is massive, and so I need funding. So I opened a nonprofit for it, and I've been receiving private donations, and that has actually been part of my path, because I think there's going to be times where I'm on the ocean where I feel like quitting, and then I'm going to think, of all the people who supported me. And I sell these private customizable boat stickers. So basically anyone can get whatever they want on my boat. So you could put like a photo of your family or your name or a quote or whatever. And I think it's really cool that I'm going to be staring at these stickers that people have made while I'm rowing and just going, these are all the people that have put their dreams into my dream. And I'll go, I'll row one stroke for that person. I'll row one stroke for that person who donated $20. I'll do one stroke for that person. Look at their sticker there. And then before I know it, I'll keep rowing.
That's an incredible idea. Wow. Because it's not just a fundraiser, like it has meaning behind it.
Yeah. And I've been given the mic, or I will be given the mic with this trip. And I have the opportunity to create real change in the world and be a force for good. It's this expedition that's coming up started as a private thing, but it's become so much bigger than me and so much more than just me. And I think that is part of my path.
So I think I kind of know your answer, but after you've done some of these extraordinary adventures that have been highly publicized and featured in Paddling Magazine, is life all glitz and glam for you now after all the publicity?
Everyone has their private life. And if you just know me from social media or the things that I've done, then you probably are under the impression that I spend all my days doing cool adventure stuff. But I mean, I have a life just like anyone. The biggest thing that I've been doing the last year since I got off the river is I've been a primary caregiver for my grandfather with dementia. And that has been a complete different journey from paddling down the North America's largest and longest rivers. So that's kind of the biggest thing that's going on outside of my adventuring is being a caregiver. It's been a lot more difficult than I expected, but it's a journey I'll look back on fondly.
Yeah, it's amazing how impactful different journeys can be.
For sure. And, there's lessons that I'm learning now being a caregiver that I will lean on at sea, and these memories I will replay in my head. And my ocean rowboat is named after my grandmother, which is my grandfather's wife, who passed away in 2019. So I think that, what I'm doing now, taking care of my grandfather, is part of the ocean rowing plan.
It's really beautiful.
I think a lot of people who are in the limelight and everybody sees them being kind of high profile thing, I think there's always something going on in the background that people don't really see. Of course, why would they? They often think that, oh man, that person's got it made, man. They're just, wow, look at them all the time. They're doing these really cool things. But like I said, more times than not, there's stuff, there's personal stuff going on in the background that sometimes is a struggle for them. I mean, does that sound like maybe similar to your situation a little bit?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Usually in Hollywood, it's drugs and alcohol, but in the outdoor community, we have other things. But yeah.
Well, I guess I could have been there before I started down the rivers. I guess that's where I was headed, to Hollywood. So who knows what would have happened there?
Yeah, you think you took the right turn? I'm sure, right?
Well, it's working out for me so far.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, on that note, we're going to take a break, but don't go away. We'll be back with more of The Camping Show on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV after these messages.
It's time to go camping. Introducing Campground View's virtual tours. You can tour the campground, see the sites, see if they are available, and click to book your perfect spot. Hit the open road and explore the amazing places found in nature. We make it easy to discover, find, and book your site so that you can go have the fun and freedom you seek. Campground View's virtual tours make it easy and simple for you to see where you are going.
A few years ago, someone asked Rutabaga's owner, Darren Bush, "Hey, how long have you guys been selling boats?" Darren replied, "We don't sell boats. We sell time on the water." Of course, that comes in all types. We help people paddle more safely with Rutabaga outdoor programs. We rent canoes, kayaks, and stand-up paddleboards. We sell and install racks to get you from home to adventure. Rutubaga's got everything you need to get you out on the water, like paddles, life jackets, dry bags, and clothing. Rutabaga Paddle Sports, on the web at rutabaga.com. Mention you saw this ad on The Camping Show.
And we're back on The Camping Show with Ellen Falterman as our guest. And I think you touched on this a little bit here before, Ellen, but tell us a little bit more about the type of preparation you've been doing for your sea expedition planned for 2022.
So a lot of staring at the computer. But a lot of research. I bought a small library of books written by ocean rowers and been reading those. A lot of it's been fundraising, and I had to organize and create a nonprofit and become an accountant and do a lot of things that I didn't know how to do. But on the actual physical side, I mean, I've been rowing for 2 years now, so I already know how to row, but I've been fine-tuning my rowing form. I'm in touch with a rowing coach, and I've been tweaking that just to really, because for 40,000 miles, if you can change one little thing that's going to increase your speed by 0.05 knots over 40,000 miles, it's going to make a difference. So working on rowing form, and then just getting everything together for the boat, all the gear that I need and all the intelligence I need. I went to England just recently and did some ocean rowing training. I did a 5-day sea school course. So I got my offshore marine radio license. We did first aid. We deployed life rafts, shot off flares, did navigation. So I did some like more official training over there. And yeah, I don't know what else.
Well, you did. Tell us a little bit about the when you first went over there, because you and I have talked before. We've developed a friendship. You mentioned to me about the whole when you first got over there about your boat, and you first got to step on it, and you had a guy that was in charge of everything and kind of working with you, but then you took that boat out for the first time. And tell us a little bit about that.
Oh man, I was so nervous. I was almost getting to the point that I didn't want to tell people about my expedition because I was like, what if I get to my boat and I just like can't move her through the water, or she's impossible to steer, or I'm just like too small for this boat or something? What if there's just a total deal changer that I don't know about? So I was really nervous to get out in my boat. I'd never been that far offshore before either. So I had to learn how to deploy the ground anchor, the para anchor, and just like be out there and working with it was a 16-foot tidal difference. So there was a lot of new things that I had to do, not to mention I was in a new boat that I'd never rowed before. So it was really nervous, but everything went really well. And when I got back to that marina, I was like grinning like a fool.
There were a couple of things you had to tweak though on there. Wasn't there? When you got there, you said we had to adjust something. What was that? Like the GPS, or what was that? Something else?
No, I mean the boat was fairly set up. The biggest problem that I found, so I was really getting anxious about the boat. Because of COVID, I had to reschedule my trip to the UK 3 times. So I was almost getting to the point that I just wanted to have the boat shipped over without having rowed her.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, because I mean, I had to get the boat here. I got to get the show on the road.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I went because there were a couple things that I wanted to have done to the boat that would have been hard for me to do once I got her to the States, most notably the aft cabin door. I got locked out of my aft cabin like 10 miles offshore.
You told me about that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And,
she's like, wow.
Yeah. And the boat builders basically said, they're like, yeah, we haven't used these hatches in like 4 years. We stopped putting them on the boats because they're terrible. So I got to have the entire aft cabin door replaced, which is a pretty big job. I need to have like a shipwright to do that. Who knows what they're doing? So I'm glad the boat is over there with people who know how to work on those boats. So that was the main thing.
Having that happen on a trip like that, and you're like, oh my God, I never.
Oh my gosh, yeah. If like I was pretty desperate 10 miles offshore, but if I was in the middle of the Pacific, locked out of my cabin, that would be a pretty alarming.
Talk about some anxiety. Oh my God.
Yeah, but that's going to get fixed. So when the boat gets here, which should be before the new year, she's going to be basically ready to go.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we had a question here. How big is the boat?
She's 23 feet long and 4.5 on the beam.
Wow.
That sounds good. And I guess the question that has to be asked is, how did you ever come up with the idea of rowing around the world?
So, like I said in the beginning, it's sort of a 6-year story. So you see that I've been like on the rivers for the last 5 years. So, when I got to the end of the rivers, originally I was going to do like a lap of the Gulf of Mexico because I said, I'm in the Gulf of Mexico now where the Mississippi River dumped me out at. And so I was like, okay, I can do the lap of the Gulf. And I looked into it and I plotted a route, and it's going to be a counterclockwise circumnavigation of the Gulf. And I noticed there's going to be 2 open water crossings, one from the Yucatan to Cuba and another from Cuba to Florida. So I was like, well, I probably can't do this in a canoe. I could, but I really don't want to do this in a canoe. So I need a bigger boat. So I just Googled ocean rowing boats, and I had no idea that was even a thing. And I said, wow, people have ocean rowing boats. And then I saw the price tag and and I went, if I spend all this time and money to get one of these boats, when I get to the Yucatan, I'm probably just going to want to keep going. And if I keep going, I can make it to Panama. And if I make it to Panama, I can go through the canal. And if I do that and I'm in a boat that's literally made to cross oceans, then I could cross the Pacific, which has been done. And then I'm in Australia, and then I cross the Indian, and then I'm back home.
Did you
So
know all that?
simple.
Yeah, it sounds simple, right? But did you know all that at first, or did you just go, "Oh, wow," and then this has been done, and this has been done? Did you kind of how'd that process go, though?
Yeah, I didn't know that it had been. I didn't even know that people rowed across oceans.
Yeah.
The first people to row across an ocean were in the late 1800s. So people have been rowing across oceans for a while now.
Yeah.
Although these guys were really crazy. They did it in like an open top rowboat, and they were just like carried all their water. It was really
Whoa.
intense. Oh yeah,
Whoa.
yeah. They went from New York to France. It was pretty wild. But ocean rowing as a sport has become more popular in the last like 20 years because of the Tauska Whiskey Atlantic Challenge, which is a race that goes from La Gomera, Africa to Antigua in the Caribbean. And there's I want to say like 30 or 40 boats a year that do that. So over 100 people a year are rowing across the Atlantic alone. And then everyone has rowed across all these oceans independently. People have rowed across the Pacific and the Indian as well. But no one has ever linked it all together and rowed around the world. There have been people who have done human-powered circumnavigations, but when they'll row across an ocean, and then when they get to a landmass, they'll have their boat shipped to the other side of the landmass and then take a bicycle across the landmass and go meet their boat, which I thought about doing, but it just seemed like a logistical nightmare to get your bicycle over there, and then you got to get your boat to the other side. And I was like, I'm just going to stay on my boat and follow the coastline.
Have you had a call from Lester Holt yet to be on the
No.
news, be on the evening news? Yeah,
No.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. I'm sure we're going to see you on the evening news, 6:00 evening news when you get back, Mr.
Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, hey, well, you were over UK. Did you do anything fun? Did you ever have any chance to do anything fun? Go out,
Oh, like
explore
rowing
a
an
little
ocean rowboat isn't fun?
Well, there's that. Yeah, absolutely. I guess that is fun.
In addition to the normal fun.
Yeah, I've never done that, but of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Something that go, hey man, I'm gonna go explore this while I'm over here.
Sorry to be snarky.
No, it's all good.
No, actually that trip was a 4-part trip. So when I booked my airplane tickets, there was a quarantine in place, but the quarantine got lifted after I booked my tickets. So I just had these 10 random days that I was supposed to be in quarantine that I didn't have to anymore. So I went up to Scotland and I hitchhiked around and I visited bothies. A bothy is like these really old, usually shepherd's homes way out in the Highlands. You can only get to them by foot and you could stay at them for free. They're maintained by the MBA, the Mountain Bothy Association. So I would hitchhike to the trailhead and then hike to the bothy and spend the night and then hike back and hitchhike to the next one. So I did that for 10 days when I first got there, which was a vacation that I never would have originally planned because I'm so busy and so broke. I never would have scheduled 10 days to just hitchhike around or whatever, but I really needed it before I got on the water. So I went and did that, which was incredible. Totally spontaneous too. Like I didn't bring hiking boots. I didn't even know I was doing that when I arrived. So I did that. And then I went and did the 5-day sea school course. And then I went back up to Scotland and I rowed, this was planned. I rowed in a 12-man ocean rowboat with 11 other people around the Isle of Mull in Scotland. That was 5 days. That was incredible. I signed up for the rowing experience, but I was not prepared for the connections I would make with the crew. There were some people had never rowed before. Some people were going across the Atlantic in December. It was just a really cool section of people and it was a really good crew. So I did that. And that was my first time in an ocean rowboat proper offshore. And it was 2 hours on, 2 hours off, row for 2 hours and rest for 2 hours. So we did that for 5 days up in Mull, and then I went down back to England and rowed in my boat for 10 days, and then I came home.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a great trip, and there were like too many things. I was like, I have way too many things planned. Something's got to go wrong, but it all went really well.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. So when you're on these extended trips and when you're doing your little tour around the world, how will you manage daily tasks like cooking, laundry, personal hygiene, and things like that while at sea?
I mean, basically what the sailors do. When it starts raining, you go and you grab your soap and you take a shower. Cooking, I'll have propane burner. Although if my cooking stove fails, all my food is dehydrated food, so I can rehydrate it without heat if I needed to. And then, just hygiene. I mean, I'll have a desalination unit, so I have fresh water to clean myself and clean my clothes. And there's no toilet on board. There's a bucket instead.
Oh, wow.
And they call it bucket and chuck it.
Bucket and chuck it.
Yeah, you're on the boat alone. No one's there.
Well, it's funny on Roxy, the 12-man ocean rowboat, you like just met these people and you're like using the bathroom right in front of them. So you really bond really quickly on an ocean rowboat with the crew.
Yeah, because I wondered that too. I said, well, how do you go to the bathroom? Is there a bathroom built in there? And you said 4 foot at the beam. I'm going, there's no room for a bathroom. Of course, you do have 20 feet. Like, still.
Yeah, if you ever see a bucket on an ocean rowboat, just stay away from that bucket.
That's what it is. Wow. So they grab the soap when it rains. See, I didn't know that. That's
you take a shower.
I did not know that. That's interesting. But that's true, though, right? They really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting.
And what if something goes wrong during your expedition? What sort of emergency plan or like rescue service will you have available?
Good question for a pilot. I'm always thinking about the emergency procedures. But it is the 2021. We have technology now, so I'll have 2 EPIRBs on the boat. EPIRB is an emergency personal indicating radio beacon. I'll have one on the exterior of the boat in the grab bag, and then one in the cabin. So those I can set off. I'll have a PLB, a personal locating beacon, on me. I'll also have a VHF radio that has Mayday on it. No, I think and a satellite phone. So I have five ways of letting the world know that I need help.
Okay.
How long would that take for someone to show up? Because you're on the ocean. Coast Guard isn't everywhere. They can't be everywhere. How long do you estimate it would take someone or chopper or whatever to get to you?
Yeah, there's no magic fairy that comes and pulls you off the water the moment you need help. It really depends on where I am in the world. So if I'm near a major shipping route, what the Coast Guard does is they divert the nearest vessel to go and get you. They'll come get you, but they won't get your boat. And sometimes the rescue operation itself can be pretty tricky because you're being picked up by a cargo boat, usually a massive freighter. So you have to get from your tiny ocean rowboat onto a massive freighter, which in itself can be dangerous. There are stories of ocean rowers actually like almost getting run over by their rescue boat. So usually it's a boat that'll come get you, a cargo ship. If you're closer into shore and you're within range of a helicopter, then they'll send a helicopter.
Wow. I did not know that there were stories about that happening. That's interesting. Wow. Well, I was going to ask you this. So this expedition, I mean, of course, it's very expensive. It has to be. You got big sponsors going on, or you finance everything yourself, or a combination of the two, or how's that work?
I wish I had sponsors. Yeah. I'm currently seeking sponsors.
I mean, Budweiser's not knocking on your door going, hey, man.
Well, so like I mentioned, I have a nonprofit set up, and I actually just got approved for tax exempt status by the IRS, which was huge. But I think the biggest thing with sponsors, I've sent close to 100 sponsorship proposals to lots of different companies, but I haven't gotten any corporate sponsors. And I think the reason is not only I'm trying to fundraise in the middle of a pandemic, which I started all this before COVID, but also I think they're a little put off by the length of the expedition. They don't want to be involved for quite that long. That's my theory, at least. The emails that I get back basically just say, that looks cool. Good luck. Sorry, COVID, which might be an excuse. But I'm way less worried about funding than I should be. I don't know. I just feel like this expedition is going to start to snowball once I'm on the water actually making miles. It's been really huge that I went to the UK and rowed in my boat. Things have already started to pick up since I've gotten back from that trip, because before then people just thought I was talking. They didn't realize how serious I was. I'm like, no, I've been broke for 2 years paying this thing off. I could not be more serious about it. But until people saw me in the boat, they weren't quite sure. And worst case, I run out of money and I go to a marina and I start cleaning boats for cash. I picked up odd jobs on the rivers. You stop and you find a way to make money, and you make enough money, get you to the next port, and you do it again. I don't know why I'm not as worried about it as I should be.
One thing's for sure, knowing a little bit about you, you are a very resourceful person. I've seen you on your Mississippi trip, the second leg of it. That's definitely for sure. Do you think that whole thing, because I mean, you're going to get some publicity when you set sail, as it were. I mean, do you think that's kind of something when people say, "Hey, man, she's really doing it. She's out there," and they're going to get progress reports. I'm sure you're going to do a little social media while you're out there. Am I right? Or try to somehow?
Yeah. I'll have my sister-in-law's a social media manager. She does that for a living, so she'll be doing that for me.
Do you anticipate people going, you know something, man, I'm going to put some money toward that. I'm going to, I want to help her. I think that would probably inspire a lot of people to do that once you get started even.
I think so, and I hope so. And I am a writer. I don't have anything published, but I do write. And I think my writing is the greatest thing that I have to offer to the world.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be writing while I'm out there. And I think that's really going to kind of take off. And I hope people get something out of my writing. And who knows what I'm going to write while I'm out there. I'll have plenty of time to think about it. But yeah, I mean, when my very first expedition that I did was in the Amazon with my brother, and we found all sorts of ways of making money. We played music on the streets. We made wire art. We sold caipirinhas. We sold drinks. We just found ways to make enough money to get food for the next day, And I think just remaining true to that and remembering where I started makes me less concerned about funding, because I know that I'll find a way.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you.
Roxy, do you think you could put up some photos for us, please? And we'll have Ellen tell us a little bit about each of them.
That's the boat.
Yeah, those are the previous owners. She's a gently used ocean rowboat. She only did like 300 miles the Atlantic before the crew abandoned their expedition. So yeah, that's the boat before I got her. That was in my first trip to the UK when I went right before COVID. I went and looked at these ocean rowboats, and I just literally sent Rannoch Adventure an email, and I was like, "Hey, I think I'm going to row around the world. I'm going to come over and look at boats." And they're like, "Sure." And that's me the first time I've ever been inside the cabin. That's not the boat that I bought. I was just looking at them.
It looks extremely cool, though. What'd you think when the first time you got in one of those?
I said, "Man, this is way more room than my van." And they were like, "What?"
Oh, that is so cool.
That's me. The very first time I ever rowed an ocean rowboat. That boat's name is True Blue. That was the instructor's boat. So we went out and into the River Crouch for a little row. So that's me grinning like a fool there. Yeah, well, I was just we only went out for like an hour. It was just like a test run. I just I wanted to see if I could move these boats through the water. So that's me the first time I ever rowed an ocean rowboat. Those are my hands. That's my hands along the Intracoastal Waterway last year. They look awful because in the caption says, "This is what my hands look like after rowing in the rain all day." So, obviously your hands get wrinkled. So yeah. So, I mean, I had a lot of calluses, but the wrinkles made them look really terrible.
Yeah, right.
Do you ever use tape on your hands to counteract the really bad ones?
I do sometimes. I try to avoid tape and gloves when I'm on long expeditions because you want to form calluses. Calluses are the best thing to have on your hands. If I'm on a shorter expedition and my hands don't have time to form calluses, I'll wear gloves or tape. But for the long-term ones, I try to develop natural protection. That is my brother Patrick. He like hitchhiked around South America for like 6 years. He ended up in the Amazon for a couple years, and he just found this boat and sort of renovated it and ended up traveling on the Amazon for a couple years. And that's him on the Amazon, just rowing along. He's
very cool.
Yeah, that's my brother. He was it's really hard to describe him. He was a unique dude.
You can see the similarities between your faces.
Oh yeah, it's a little scary actually. When we were hitchhiking in South America, my brother and I, and we were in the back of this truck and with a bunch of other people, and they were looking at us. And Patrick would always tell people in Portuguese that I was his wife, just for like protection. So I was like 18, and they were looking at us, and they go, "That's your wife?" And he's like, "Yeah." "You sure do look alike." And my brother's like, "Oh, we're from the same region."
That's really funny, actually.
That's me on the upper Mississippi. When I came down the Mississippi in 2019, the river was really high. All the locks were shut down, actually. And so it was hard to find a place to camp because it was flooded everywhere. So that's how we camped in the Amazon. If there was no dry land, we just hung our hammocks above the boat, and the boat becomes sort of your ground.
Wow.
So that's Amazon style camping on the Mississippi. That is in 2016. I took a bicycle, a tandem bicycle, obviously, from England to Greece. This was before my brother died. After I came back from the Amazon, I sort of had like the travel bug, and I wanted to do a river trip, or not a river trip. I just wanted to do a trip, but I didn't want to be on the river because I had a bit of a alarming experience on the Amazon, and I was a little bit scared of rivers. So I wanted to do my own trip. I wasn't confident going alone at the time. I was like 21. I turned 21 on that trip. So I took my partner that I was dating at the time, and we took a bicycle 5,000 miles, 4.5 months from England to Greece.
No, very cool.
The
This looks
captions,
like a little wet. Yeah, look at that, man.
the caption says, "But what do you do when it rains?"
Yeah.
That's
row,
what
right?
you do. If you can't row, then that's what you do.
Wow.
That was actually taken by my friend Joanna. She's a Japanese paddler that I met on the river, and we linked up and paddled together for about 3 weeks on the lower Mississippi.
That's pretty cool.
I like this picture. It reminds me to tell a story. Me and Joanna, that's her boat there, her kayak on the left. We were paddling along. This is near Baton Rouge, and this tugboat captain was standing out on his tugboat, and he was watching us go by, and he was like, "Y'all hungry?" And we were like, "Yes." And then we pulled over, and he gives us this big plate of boudin and stuff.
Oh,
And
wow.
then actually, this shirt that I'm currently wearing is my Lucky Tugboat shirt. It's just a plain white shirt. But because while that tugboat captain, he was watching us eat, and he was just staring at us, and he goes, y'all want like a clean shirt?" And we were like, "Yes." I was like, "Is it that bad?"
Oh my God. Wow.
So I've got my Lucky Tugboat shirt.
That's funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's me, Joanna, and I. That was also near Baton Rouge. We ended in the Gulf together. When we got to the Gulf, she had a foldable kayak, which is insane. She said she could feel when a fish was swimming beneath her, which is like, y'all think I'm crazy. So she packed up her little foldable kayak and put it on her back and took a Greyhound back to where she was living, I think in Kentucky. And then I continued along the coastline.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what those offshore rigs look like. They're pretty massive. Once you get to Baton Rouge is the northernmost point that those rigs can go, because after that, the bridge is too low. So from Baton Rouge to the end of the river, you're dealing with those guys. So I was always on the Marine radio because I'm a pilot. I'm fine talking on the radio, and they were really appreciative that I was on the radio. So even though it looks like I'm just like, throwing all caution into the wind, like I was in touch with that captain. He knew I was coming down, but that's kind of like a good scale reference there. That's going along the Gulf Coast. Yeah. I was camping on the Barrier Islands, making my way to Texas, and it got a little stormy. It's the Gulf Coast,
Yes,
but
a little bit.
yeah, so you have these little pop-up thunderstorms that come by.
And there's
Just a little thunderstorm.
There's no protection there. You're out in the open. It's like very susceptible.
Well, I have a tent.
Yeah, right. That's
Yeah.
You're right.
It has a rain tarp.
Yeah, and I've got my tent tied to my boat, and then you can see I've got these buckets that I've staked the tent out with, so I'm not relying just on stakes alone.
Yeah.
I'm using weight to hold my tent down. Yeah, that's also along the Gulf Coast. That contraption there is actually the top of a shrimping boat that somehow got there.
Okay. I'm like, what the heck is that?
Yeah, I didn't know what it was either, and then I posted that, and someone said, "Oh, it's the top of a shrimping boat."
Yeah. Okay, so here is my favorite of all the pictures, man. I mean, I saw this when you posted. I go, wow, check this out.
Yeah, I don't know where to put those legs sometimes.
Wow.
But yeah, Joanna took that picture. I was trolling for catfish down in the Bird's Foot Delta, and we just caught a catfish. skinned it
Yeah.
right there and
Third
ate it for
hand.
lunch. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Well, I just checked the time here. We're winding on in 4 minutes. We got several questions. So let's do this one quickly here. You mentioned, and I'm stealing this one from you, Willow, here too. You mentioned that you were going to be staying on your boat here for about the next year. Is that right?
Yes, Sarah. I am going to be, the boat's going to
Living
get here hopefully before the new year. And then I'm going to move into the boat in January and park it at a marina and live aboard the boat until I leave, which should be around after hurricane season next year. So I still have another year before I leave on this trip because I got to time it with the hurricane seasons. And that'll be good for me to live in the boat also before I depart. And also I need to keep working.
Yeah, that won't be weird at all just to living on a boat like that and being,
Not for me.
No, yeah, you're pretty used to that. I would imagine. Right?
Well, it's a lot more cozy than living on a canoe for 6 months. I mean, when it rains, I
there's
don't get
that.
wet.
There's absolutely that. But you're going to be doing, what did you call that again? Something and dump or trash or throw. What was that with the bucket?
Bucket and chuck it. No, at the
Bucket
marina,
and chuck it.
they have restrooms at the marina.
There's where I was going with that. Thank you. So I'm going, really? That's a long time to do but 7 years is going to be a long time to do that as well. Though, so.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah, that's amazing. Hey, you're going to cook on that boat. I'm sorry. Well, you're going to cook on that boat too.
Yeah, I'll have a camp stove.
Everything. Wow. That's amazing. I'm sorry, Willow. Go ahead. Yeah, I just had to ask.
No, it's okay. You said your question. I was like, oh, wait, I want to hear the answer to this. So, well, I was curious, once you've completed this expedition, do you have any idea of what your next adventure will be?
Well, I have 7 years to think about it.
That's fair.
So I'm just going to kind of see where it goes. I mean, I could go back to flying airplanes when I get back. It could be the last expedition I ever do, or I can do many more. I'm just going to have to, I mean, I've played everything by ear at this point. I don't plan things too far in advance. I just kind of, I call it a breadcrumb trail. While you're doing something, you pay attention to the signs, and then that kind of tells you what you need to do next.
So you don't plan any of that stuff. You just kind of like, you don't have well, I guess you'd call it a bucket list, maybe, where I've got to do this adventure. Then next I'm going to do this. And then after you don't do it.
You just do what feels right at the time.
I love it. I love it. To be in your 20s. That's just cool. Play it by ear. I like that. That's awesome.
And where can our listeners and viewers go to follow you on social media?
So it's all at Ellen Magellan Expeditions, Ellen, Magellan Expeditions with an S. I had to look up how Ferdinand Magellan spelled that. I struggled with it.
Very creative.
Yeah, and Ellen Magellan, I've been going by Ellen Magellan for like 5 years, long before I planned to do a circumnavigation. It was just it's been my trail name forever, and which I take that as a sign that I was meant to do this all along.
100%.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we'd like to thank you, Ellen, for being our guest here on the Camping Show. It was a pleasure having you here with us this evening.
Pleasure to be here again.
Yeah.
We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Campground Views and Rutabaga Paddle Sports, for bringing you tonight's show.
Be sure to tune in for next week's episode, When Things Go Wrong, with our special guest, John Turk.
Until then, thank you for tuning into the Camping Show.
This is C.W. Getz
and Willow Munson,
reminding you,
learn more,
do more. See you next week.
See you next week.